Hi, my name is Jake Kurth. I'm with Leeds Forensic Systems. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about infrared and violet light screening with the Leeds Spectral vision system. I have right here a shirt with a lot of pattern on it, and it's been shot at close range several times by a gun. Right now I can't really see what I'm looking for, so that's why I can use, or that's where I can use, infrared light to try to reduce that background, or I hope will reduce that background. So right now I'm looking at my sample. We can see what I would call a lot of pattern confusion. Let's go ahead and try our infrared light settings. So I'm going to go ahead and change from white light to my infrared light source. And now what I'm going to do is change my filter from my clear filter to my infrared filter, which is going to block all of the ambient light and only let through my 830 nanometer wavelengths. So very quickly you can see that the background has faded out. What's happening here is that my light source is shining infrared light at the sample. The fabric of the sample is reflecting back the infrared light, and in this case the dyes are also reflecting back infrared light in a similar way, which is why they don't show up. What does show up, however, is the gunshot residue, or the stippling that you see. And the reason we visualize it is because it absorbs the infrared light differently than the background that it's on. It works. We get a massive contrast enhancement and our background goes out. This doesn't always work like this though, because if the sample, like this gunshot residue, absorbs infrared light similarly to the background material, or if the background material's dyes also absorb infrared light and reflect it similarly to the sample, we won't see an increase in contrast. But we do have other options available. A good example of a sample that doesn't cause an increase in contrast when switching to infrared is this particular fabric over here. So right now this is what the fabric looks like in infrared. I don't get a lot of extra detail from it. Let's go back to white light and see what it looks like. I can clearly see some blood stains that stand out. So why is the infrared not working in this case? What's happening here is the infrared light hits the sample, the fabric absorbs infrared light, similarly to the blood stains that are actually on the fabric, so we don't get any increase in contrast. But what I can do is try a different technique that takes advantage of hemoglobin's violet absorption, which is violet light. Doing a technique like this with violet light works best in a dark room, so there's no ambient light entering the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and switch from my white light to my violet light at around 400 nanometers. In this case, I'm going to need to refocus slightly and bring down my brightness. And what you can see is an increase in contrast. What's happening here is hemoglobin has a peak absorption at, I believe, around 415 nanometers. And so what's happening is we're hitting violet light at the sample, or shooting violet light at the sample. The sample, the blood in this case, absorbs the violet light differently than the background, which reflects it, and we're able to get a contrast enhancement. So for comparison, this is our violet light sample, or example. And now let's go back to my infrared. I'm going to cheat and use my preset. This is the infrared setting. And now I'm going to go back to white light. And again, I'm going to cheat and use my preset that I made earlier for my filter and light combination. And here's my white light setting. And so very quickly, we can see that between white light and infrared, there isn't a large contrast enhancement. However, let's go ahead and make a comparison. Between white light and the violet, we do see a contrast enhancement, particularly around these small blood spatter areas. Violet light is a useful application with the LSV system and will work sometimes where the infrared technique doesn't for blood detection. Thanks for watching. I'm Jake Kurth with Leeds.